Now, the next story, diplomatically, I believe, involves North Korea. And this is very interesting because when Sanai Takachi, the Prime Minister of Japan, was in the United States having talks with Trump, um, I believe she made an overture or said words to the effect of she was hoping to or she was willing to have talks with North Korea in the near future, sort of putting feelers out there. Maybe you could speculate. Nonetheless, despite that, that's quickly been shut down by North Korea. And it appears North Korea has rebuffed Japan as the prominent sister of Kim Jong Un, the current ruler of North Korea, has ruled that out immediately. So that's sort of a blow for Japan. Um, a bit of background to this also is that while there was this sort of Iran war tension, North Korea set off a series of, I think, something like 10 ballistic missiles outside of Japan's exclusive economic zone. Now, you can speculate why they did this. It's maybe they thought attention was distracted given the ongoing Iran war, and there could have been very much a real factor of there's been some speculation that South Korean air defense could be pulled out by the United States to be redeployed in the Middle East for this Iran war. And so, obviously, deploying ballistic missiles, North Korea, immediately after that sort of noise, maybe you could see it as a sort of a warning or a salvo to warn the United States not to get too confident and to sort of warn them off doing that sort of thing, or just to put them on notice. I mean, who can truly know why they did that? But that's certainly a possible motive. And as I say, after this, Sonai Takachi expressed this openness to meet, which was then ruled out by Kim Jong Un's sister. And the reason she gave was that she said it was the anachronistic demands of Japan when it comes to hostages being returned or talks about hostages. Now, my understanding is that there were previous talks between Japan and North Korea over some Japanese hostages who were taken by North Korea. And at that venture, I believe some of them were returned at that point. And North Korea, I believe, has stated that some more of them have died. And so, from their point of view, they consider it a settled matter. There's no more hostages from their point of view to return because they've either died or they've been returned already. Whereas Japan doesn't necessarily accept that. They want either to have more hostages returned, ideally, or at least to have more information or to have a discussion about it. But Japan's request is being shut down in that sense. North Korea doesn't want to discuss this matter, although Kim Jong Un's sister did qualify it by saying this is just her statement. It's not necessarily the official position of North Korea, but you'd have to say she's very much a sort of very much associated with the ruling regime of North Korea, if not actually very much an influential person herself. So that does carry weight. And you also have to speculate. Okay, it might well be the case that North Korea just doesn't want to get into it with Japan, and it doesn't want to have this subject of the hostages brought up again. That could very well be true or part of the truth. But it could be the case of maybe there's a sort of a deeper motive. One element of the deeper motive could be, of course, China. Now, North Korea has very close, to say the least, historical security, military, diplomatic, economic, all sorts of very close ties with China. And that relationship has really been crucial for them, if not essential over the years. So they very much have this very close relationship with China. Now, Japan recently have somewhat alienated China by these statements that Sonai Takachi made, where she said that if China were to make a military move towards Taiwan, that might be considered, for Japan's point of view, an existential threat, which implies that they might have to get militarily involved. Now, China took that very negatively. There's been something of a war of words going back and forth. There's been sort of a soft trade war where China's been warning tourists off and shutting down tourist routes so that they're not going to Japan, and to sort of cut off a supply of money that way. There's also been talk of cutting off rare earths going to Japan, which is crucial for their sort of AI infrastructure and their production of silicon chips and other areas of their economy as well. And there's also speculation that this, if it's not resolved, could even go further in terms of a trade war. So China is sort of putting Japan on notice in all those ways. And so maybe North Korea doesn't want to upset their closest ally, or certainly one of their closest allies, by having this sit down with Japan. And so maybe they're sort of either doing it at the behest of China, or without even having to ask China, they're just shutting it down immediately because they know it's not something they want to do. They don't want to encourage Japan at a time when they have bad relations with sort of a key ally. So it could be they're doing it because of China. Another speculation is, of course, it's the United States. Now, the United States has in the past had sit-down talks, of course, with North Korea. That happened during Trump's first term. But it might be that because the current struggles the United States might be having in terms of the Iran war notwithstanding, the United States is a massive economic military superpower, you'd have to say, a world superpower. So maybe the North Korea can't rebut the USA openly and insult them if they're unhappy at them in any way. But maybe they can with Japan, given that Japan is sort of so closely allied with the USA. They're completely, very closely aligned with them in terms of their security, and the US bases on Japan are incredibly important. It's a very close economic tie as well. So those two are very closely associated. But at the same time, it's not the same thing. To insult Japan is not the same as insulting the USA. For one thing, they don't have their own, legally speaking, military. So maybe North Korea might not feel so comfortable shutting down the USA if they were to approach them and ask for these talks. But if it's Japan, maybe they feel a little bit more comfortable upsetting them than they would the USA, North Korea. And so maybe they're sending a little bit of a message by proxy to the USA, or maybe they'd be more tolerant of the USA because of their status. But in terms of Japan, they're more comfortable just shutting that down and not having the discussion. And so that could be me reading too much into it, but maybe North Korea just simply isn't open to talks at this time. But those are some possible diplomatic implications of why they've shut them down.